Who do you think rocked the Spider-Man role the best? Was it Tom Holland, the fun-loving Spidey from the Marvel movies, or maybe Andrew Garfield, the serious hero from another series? But hold on a sec. What if I told you the OG Spider-Man, Tobey Maguire, is where it's at? He kicked off the whole thing and set the bar high. Let's dive in and give Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man some love. Back in the early 2000s, he totally owned the role, drawing us into Peter Parker's world with his genuine performance. But seriously, who's your Spidey fave? Maguire's impact. Maguire is the name of the person who was in charge of making that character come to life. Most people were deeply moved by Maguire's performance as the legendary superhero. As a result, it set the standard for how the character would be portrayed in the future. Capturing Peter Parker. By doing this, Maguire accomplished something very important. Putting on the suit and swinging through the city wasn't the only part of his performance. It was about becoming Peter Parker, a character who is both relatable and complex, and who is dealing with the problems of being a teenager and a superhero at the same time. Her performance was great. This is a list of the problems Peter Parker has to deal with. But why does it seem like a lot of people are still sure that he is the best? It is important to think about both how deep and how sincere Maguire's performance was in order to figure out the answer. Maguire made Peter Parker seem like an outsider in high school who was trying to figure out how to live a complicated teen life. He was a character in the world of Marvel movies. Maguire was able to get to the heart of Peter Parker's problems right from the start of the story. The audience liked him more than other characters because he wasn't shown as a perfect hero, but as a person with flaws who could be talked to. He was easier to talk to than some of the other characters. Because of this, he became more interesting to the people in the audience. Relatability of Peter Parker. Imagine that you are awkward and nerdy in high school and have a hard time fitting in with the kids who are there to have fun. It looks like this is where you are right now. Tobey Maguire's character, Peter Parker, was a great example of this idea because he overcame problems that many of us had when we were kids. Depth of Maguire's performance. Maguire's performance as Peter Parker in the first Spider-Man movie, which came out in 2002, was a great balance between accurately capturing adolescence and getting to the heart of what it's like to be a teen. This fair portrayal of Peter Parker was a huge accomplishment. Despite the fact that Peter had just found out he had superpowers, he seemed like a real underdog who was having a hard time dealing with all the complicated things that came with being a teenager. He really was the underdog. Emotional connection. The way Maguire connected with the audience on a personal level made it possible for his performance as Peter Parker to really hit home with them. He was shy around Mary Jane Watson, the girl he liked, and found it hard to stand up to bullies at school. These behaviors made it clear that he felt this way. He liked Mary Jane Watson more than anyone else. A lot of people liked him because he was awkward and bad at social situations. These traits helped them understand how he felt because they were like him himself. Maguire did a great job of making Peter Parker seem like a character who understood what it's like to feel like an outsider as a child. Everyone has this impression at some point. He was able to capture the essence of this universal experience, whether it was dealing with the pressures of school, meeting new people, or just trying to find his place in the world. He was able to do it. Peter Parker was successful in this way. Should I worry about how I did on my test? Personal enemies. People really connected with Tobey Maguire's performance as Peter Parker, but that wasn't the only thing that people connected with. Even more emotion was added to the story by the fact that Maguire's Spider-Man had to fight enemies who were deeply connected to him personally. This made the story more interesting by adding another layer of experience. Imagine that someone who used to be your best friend is now your enemy and you have to fight them. How would it feel? Would you even be able to begin to understand how big that is? Throughout the legendary Raimi trilogy, Maguire's Spider-Man fought enemies who were not just random bad guys, but people who were close to him in real life. In the whole trilogy, these fights happened over and over again. As Spider-Man, Tobey Maguire faced many different types of enemies, and each one was different and complicated. Harry Osborn, a childhood friend who was filled with anger and jealousy, and Otto Octavius, a mentor who turned enemy, were both very different from each other. Harry Osborn was filled with anger and jealousy. Harry Osborn was filled with two strong emotions, envy and hate. In these conflicts, there were not only physical fights, but also mental and emotional ones. There were more going on than just fights. This is because there were more than just physical fights in these military conflicts. The emotional stakes of the battles went up from what they were before because the people involved became more personally connected with each other. Inner turmoil. Maguire's portrayal of Spider-Man took on a new level of depth and resonance when he was able to show the inner turmoil and conflict he felt when he had to face people he cared about at the time who turned out to be his enemies. This was possible because Maguire was able to show the inner turmoil and conflict he was going through. The reason for this was that he was able to show the trouble and conflict he had been through. Range of emotions. We should also take a moment to recognize the range of emotions that Tobey Maguire brought to the part of the character. Let's not pass up this chance. It wasn't always easy for him to play Spider-Man. He made mistakes and had to deal with the consequences of those mistakes. He was far from perfect in any way. Character growth. In all three movies, Maguire did a great job of capturing the essence of Peter Parker's journey, showing his struggles, weaknesses, and growth as the story went on. He was able to do this by showing how he had grown along the way. This was done by showing how he had grown along the way. Christopher Maguire played Peter Parker in a way that showed how the character could deal with tough moral dilemmas and personal problems in a sincere and honest way. Some of these problems were not easy to solve, like Uncle Ben's death and the heavy load of responsibilities that were put on him. People liked how he played a hero who wasn't perfect, but who kept going even when things got tough. The reason why his portrayal worked so well was this special thing. Would you admire a hero who can learn from his mistakes and become a better person? As an example, Maguire's performance as Spider-Man, who was strong and determined to learn from his mistakes and become a symbol of hope and inspiration in the end, was a great example of this part of the character. Many people think that Tobey Maguire's performance as Spider-Man is one of the most memorable and important interpretations of the character since he was first created. It's because Maguire gives the part a lot of emotional depth and character growth that this is the case. So, the next time you debate who the best Spider-Man is, remember the original Tobey Maguire. His portrayal set the stage for all who followed, and his legacy as the greatest web-slinger lives on. Do you agree that Tobey Maguire was the best Spider-Man actor, or do you think another actor holds the title? Let us know in the comments below.